Hey, welcome to The Explainer. This is where we take big, complex ideas and, well, we make them simple. Today, we're diving into something you can't see, but you can definitely hear. We're talking about the invisible science that separates just muddy, awful audio from that crystal clear sound we all love. So, just so you know, what we're covering today is part 18 of a really cool 40-part series. It's all about modern broadcast studios put together by the folks at Virtualization Options LLC. And today's topic, it's all about something invisible, but man, does it have a huge impact on, well, pretty much everything you listen to. Your favorite podcasts, the movies you watch, you name it. All right, let's kick things off with a question, kind of like a little puzzle. Have you ever wondered why sometimes a recording made in a tiny closet stuffed with clothes can actually sound better, clearer, than one made in a giant, empty hall? I know, it sounds totally backward, right? Well, there's a science to it, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. So the secret, it all boils down to taming the invisible world of sound. See, in pretty much any room you're in, you're literally surrounded by this unseen chaos of echoes and reflections, and getting a handle on that chaos is what separates good sound from bad. Okay, picture this. You're standing in a big, empty room. You know the kind, hardwood floors, bare walls. When you say something, your voice doesn't just go straight to someone's ear. Oh no, it explodes outwards in every direction, smacking into the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and it bounces off like a million tiny rubber balls. What you're left with is this jumbled, echoing mess that just completely garbles the original sound. Now, there's a fancy word for this mess, reverberation, or, reverb. It's that sound that kind of hangs in the air after you clap your hands in a big church or a school gym. That's just all those reflections building up and then slowly dying away. A tiny bit of it can sound nice, right? It adds some character, but too much, and nobody can understand a word you're saying. So, the big question is, how do the pros get this chaos under control? Well, they have this, let's call it an acoustic toolkit, and inside are three main tools. Or maybe let's think of them as the three heroes of sound control. Each one has a totally different superpower. Let's meet them. First up, we've got absorption. This hero's job is super straightforward. Just stop the sound, dead in its tracks. When a sound wave smacks into something soft and porous, it gets kind of trapped inside. And all that sound energy, it gets turned into a teensy tiny bit of heat. Poof, the sound is basically gone from the room. And you've definitely seen this in action. I'm talking about that classic acoustic foam, right? The stuff with all the wedges and pyramids. It's all over recording studios, you see it on the walls behind your favorite streamers, and there's a good reason for that. That special shape and spongy material are designed to be expert-level sound trappers. The easiest way to think about it is like a sponge, but instead of soaking up water, these things soak up unwanted sound. They just stop those wild reflections and totally clean up the sound of the room. It's super effective for sure, kind of like a brute force solution. Okay, so our second hero is a little more subtle. This is diffusion. Now, instead of just killing the sound energy like absorption does, diffusion's strategy is to scatter it. This is so important because it lets you get rid of those really harsh, annoying echoes without making the room sound totally dead and weirdly unnatural. Here's a perfect analogy. An echo off a flat wall, that's like bouncing a tennis ball straight against it. It comes right back at you, hard. But a diffuser, that's like throwing the same ball against one of those complex, spiky sculptures. The energy gets shattered into a million tiny, harmless pieces that fly off in every direction. And that brings us to our third and final hero, isolation. Think of isolation as the bouncer at the club. Its job has nothing to do with what's happening inside the room. Its only mission is to be a barrier, to stop sound from getting in and to stop sound from getting out. This is your defense against that garbage truck that always seems to show up mid-recording. Now, isolation has to deal with two different kinds of troublemakers. First, you've got airborne noise. This is the sneaky stuff that travels through the air and finds any little crack or gap it can, under a door, through a vent. But then there's the really tricky one, structure-borne noise. This is stuff that travels through the building itself. Vibrations from footsteps upstairs or traffic outside shaking the foundation. Real, proper isolation has to defeat both. Okay, so there you have it, our three heroes, absorption, diffusion, and isolation. So now, how do the pros take this toolkit and actually use it to build, say, a world-class broadcast studio? Well, this quote right here really sums it up perfectly. You can have the most expensive microphones, the most amazing talent on the planet. But if your room's acoustics are bad, it will absolutely ruin your content. It's not just a nice to have thing. For professional audio, it's the absolute foundation you build everything else on. And to get this stuff right, engineers don't just, walk into a room and clap their hands and say, "Yep, sounds about right." No, they measure it scientifically. The most important number they look at is something called RT60. That stands for reverberation time. It's a super precise way to measure how live or dead a room sounds, just by timing exactly how long it takes for a loud noise to completely fade to silence. So, what do you think they're aiming for? In a professional studio built for crystal clear speech, what's that magic RT60 number? Get this, it's about zero point 0.3 seconds. 0.3! That is an unbelievably fast decay. We're talking about a room with practically zero echo. It's all about making sure every single syllable is perfectly clear. And to hit that crazy precise number, they don't just slap foam on the walls. No, they use a whole toolbox of specialized gear. Each one has a specific job. You've got bass traps, which are designed to soak up those boomy low sounds that always get stuck in the corners. You've got cloud panels that hang from the ceiling to handle those reflections. And then you strategically place diffusers, just to make sure the room doesn't sound too dead and sterile. It really is a science. But look, this isn't just for fancy, multi-million-dollar studios. The truth is, these exact same principles are at work all around us every single day. They're shaping what we hear in ways you probably don't even notice. I mean, think about it. Ever been to a movie theater? All those soft walls and cushy seats? That's all absorption, making sure the sound comes from the speakers, not from echoes bouncing off the back wall. Or a really loud restaurant? Sometimes they'll hang up these cool-looking art panels that are secretly absorbing sound so you can actually hear your friends talk. And yeah, even your home office for those Zoom calls, it's all the same rules. So at the end of the day, this isn't just some boring physics lesson. When you understand this stuff, you actually get the power to control your own sound environment. And that can mean better focus when you're working, way better quality on your video calls, or hey, just making your living room a more enjoyable place to be. So I want to leave you with a challenge. Now that you know about our three heroes, absorption, diffusion, and isolation, I want you to start listening to the world differently. Next time you're in a new room, just clap your hands loudly. What do you hear? Can you pick out that weird fluttery echo you get between two bare walls, or that long singing reverb in a stairwell? Now that you know the science, what acoustic problems can you hear all around you?